All right, guys. This is Lionel and LaMar back again for episode 4 of Game of Thrones Cripples, Bastards, and Broken Things. We are going to start off talking about the goings on at Winterfell. So I want to just start off with what literally was the very first scene. We see Bran walking around. And did that throw you at all, or did you just kind of assume like maybe this is some sort of dream or?
So, not that necessarily it was a dream, but I recognized him in the yard with the
Yeah.
bow and arrow
Mm,
from the first episode.
gotcha.
So I figured it may have been a flashback or something.
Okay, gotcha. And obviously they didn't really like expound much on that scene. So did you have any thoughts on it? Did it and pique your interest or anything at all?
Yeah, it was odd only because he notices the sound or something in his peripheral, and he walks over to it, and he sees a raven, or it might have been a crow, probably a raven,
Yeah,
but it had three eyes. And then once he recognized or saw that it had three eyes, it turned his head and looked at him. He woke up. So I'm
gotcha.
not sure why he had that dream or what it was supposed to mean, but that I did catch that.
Yes, I noticed as we were watching you when we got a close up on the raven's face. It is a raven. I think I can tell you that. When we got a close up on the raven's face, I noticed you noticed the eyes,
Yeah.
which I think was like a pretty small detail that I think you could have missed easily. So I thought that was pretty cool that you saw that. Yeah, so that's kind of like sort of like the future of Brand's arc. Like that's kind of like what his story is going to center around. It's a little small little snippet, but I kind of wanted to also talk about like since we go to him waking up in bed after that and he's talking to the old lady again. I wanted to talk about a little bit about how Ned and Arya have this conversation. We're not going to talk about Ned and Arya, but like they talked about Bran's future and how he can't really be a knight like he wanted to and
Mm.
everything like that. So like what are your thoughts on like what Bran's like role in the story is going to be?
I honestly don't know. You know, they do that have that conversation, and we'll get to it later. But there's also another scene with Tyrion Lannister, and that comes later as well. But he makes this, or he doesn't make it. He gives him these plans for a contraption that allows him to ride horses.
Yeah,
So they clearly Tyrion and his father, they both still want him to live the life of an able-bodied person,
yeah,
basically. And
and not just that, but also like an able-bodied person of the position he has in
right,
society.
exactly. So yeah, as far as what those plans are and what vision they have for him, I don't know yet.
Gotcha. And so, what did you think of the fact that Tyrion gave him that saddle, or the plans for that saddle, and also just he even says the line from the title that he has a soft spot for cripples, bastards, and broken things.
And it is a continuation of what I've seen from Tyrion to this point. He is very helpful. He likes to provide guidance, give wisdom. So I believed him when he said he has that soft spot. And as far as him having any ulterior motive, a callous one, maybe he wants Bran to do something else for him, a quid pro quo kind of
Yeah,
thing. I don't see that.
I
I
say I will point out that he did immediately ask about Bran's memory of the events that night.
yes.
So he obviously is like concerned about the situation at
Oh,
hand. You
right,
know,
right,
yeah,
right. So, and this also goes back then to the conversation that Jamie, Cersei, and he had in the previous episode when they were talking about him waking up and whether or not he remembered anything. And we were kind of trying to figure out whether or not he knew. So that question is still up in the air in this episode, and it's just I think he's trying to get the truth out and he wants it from Bran's own mouth. So yeah, he is still concerned for why someone would push or would harm this child, Bran, and he doesn't know if harm was intentionally brought to him, but he does want to find out. So it seems like there is genuine concern that Tyrion has for Bran. Why the show hasn't haven't given me any clues yet.
okay, cool. Yeah, because that was one of the things that I noticed when I was first watching it. I was like, that gave you. We're already shown a human side of Tyrion more so than his brothers and sister.
Right.
Like from the very beginning, you can see that he's not displaying the same kind of malice that they do. And I mean, I don't know if you really see it more from Jamie. I don't know if you see it as much from Jamie as you do from Cersei. I mean, Jamie has already said some pretty like messed up
Yeah.
things. So I mean, they're obviously on one level, and Tyrion's obviously on this level.
Right.
And seeing him show that kind of compassion towards Bran, that does seem more genuine than just, hey, I'm trying to divert attention from my family or whatever.
Right.
Like, it seems like he actually really did genuinely have that soft spot for him that he was talking about. He also likens himself to Bran by saying, when Bran says, I'm not a cripple, and he says, I'm not a dwarf.
Right.
Because he was basically telling Bran, like, hey, we're kind of on the same plane now, and in a way.
And I think he was also saying, you are a cripple.
Yeah.
It's something that is a part of your life now, and you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
There's nothing necessarily wrong with it if you don't let it be.
Yeah,
wrong.
exactly.
So, I've lived my life as an imp, a little person, and I've done pretty well for myself.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be okay, basically.
Yeah,
I think is what he was trying to say.
And that was a genuine moment of connection between those two
Right.
characters, I would say. And so, speaking of Tyrion, we talked a little bit, or we saw him talking a little bit with Theon. Theon is the one that you know everyone kind of has certain feelings about. Did you catch anything from what they were talking about? Because they laid down some pretty important exposition. This whole episode like laid down a lot of exposition. But
That conversation had a lot in it, and I gathered that Tyrion was chastising Theon,
Yeah.
sorry, for being in the position that he is. He, and I'm not sure what it is, but it's lower than his family's name, is what I gathered. Like, he shouldn't be who he is based on where he comes from.
Okay.
That's the impression that I got. And he just kind of, Tyrion keeps jabbing Theon about how he is less than because of who he serves or that he's serving and why he's doing it. Now, he talked about familiar relationships. He said a bunch of names, and I didn't catch most of them. But he said, if only your father could see you now, or something like that. And he was just not being very nice to Theon at that moment. Now, it'll have to be explained to me what exactly he was talking about, but I did see or feel that he was just giving him the business.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure.
Okay,
sure
so you sense that there was maybe an aggression there
Yeah.
to what he was saying. Okay. Because when I watched it, I wasn't really, even when I watched it just now, I wasn't sure if it was like a person, like a more mature person talking to a younger person just about like the facts of his life,
Right.
or if it was like him actually chiding him. I wasn't really sure.
Right.
And I mean, that's like the third time I've seen that, and I still don't really know. I have an idea, but yeah, it's one of those things where there's a lot of subtext to a lot of the conversations, and there was a lot in that one. But yeah, I'm glad. I just wanted to see what you picked up from that, just because there was a lot of crucial information laid out there, but you picked up enough of it because I mean, the things that they are referencing are things that they haven't talked about yet. So like there was no way for you to really know what they were talking about, but you got the gist of what they were talking about, and you understood that Theon was being mocked, which I think was important. Okay, so we're gonna move up north to the Wall now, and we're gonna talk about Jon.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about your thoughts on Jon at this moment, because you liked initially about Jon the fact that he kind of mentored Bran to a certain extent, and you like the fact that he mentored Arya and that he kind of like looked out for both of them. Now Sam isn't a child, but still we saw Jon being very protective in this episode, and we saw like I think a lot of Jon's true colors. As far as like what kind of person he is, and not the fact that he's not going to just like sit around and let somebody like bully someone for no reason. I didn't know if that made you, or I wanted to just know like how that evolved John's character in your eyes.
You mentioned Sam. Now he is a new recruit who has just arrived at the wall, and he, well, is a portly fellow, uh, and he isn't much of a fighter. We learn that because Alistair,
Yes, Alistair.
Alistair puts him up against one of the people in the courtyard to spar, as John did when he first got there, and he basically just gets taken down immediately. He doesn't even swing his sword, and he just falls to the ground and starts quivering and cowering, and he yields immediately. And Alistair is like, "Hey, get up," and he doesn't. So he instructs his sparring partner to just keep hitting him and keep hitting him until he picks up his sword and he gets up. Well, after more time than is necessary for you to realize he's not going to get up, John is like, okay, that's enough, and he pushes him off of him. And because he sees nothing's going to come of this, he's not going to get up. You're just humiliating him at this point. This isn't helping anybody, except for the entertainment of seeing this fat kid getting beat up. And Alistair kind of approaches John like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
You're not in charge here. You're just a bastard. Why are you interfering in this training exercise, basically? And Sam, he does finally get up, and he and John have a conversation. And basically, Sam's whole deal is he admits it. I'm a coward.
Yeah.
I'm not a fighter. I'm not going to be able to defend myself. I can't use that sword. It's just not going to happen. So John's like, hey, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll get through this. And the other people that are around him, they get kind of weary that by association, they're going to be labeled cowards as well. And they kind of don't want anything to do with him. So what John showed me there is the same characterization that I've seen with Bran and with Arya. He has this leader mentality. He has this protector mentality. Yeah. And he looks out for the weak.
Yeah, he looks out for the little guy very much.
And,
not in Sam's case.
Right. Not
Sorry,
literal
guys.
little guy. And later on in the episode, we get more of why he does. But he takes, from what I've seen, he takes any opportunity to provide any assistance he can, whether it's emotional or physical. And he goes out of his way to, in this situation, protect Sam from this bullying, essentially. And again, it's just building on what I like about John and what I've seen from him so far.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I have been knowing your thoughts on Ned. I was kind of waiting to see your thoughts on John evolve, kind of. But yeah, it's interesting because like John never really like stood out to me as I was watching the show. I think mostly just because like one of the things that happens with the show for me, and I don't know if this will be the same for you at all. I have noticed other people feel this way, is like sometimes no matter who the character is, you might be just more interested in the region. So like for example, like Daenerys' storyline was in a completely different place. Mm-hmm. I was interested in that place.
Gotcha.
And King's Landing has a lot of like the goings on in certain places are usually different than other places. Right. So like one setting will capture my attention regardless of who is there,
right,
to a certain extent. And so the wall was never super interesting to me. So like watching John, or at least in the beginning, so like watching John, I was like, okay, I don't really know what's going on, and I focus more on other things. And so I noticed a lot of stuff in this episode about John that like really built on the things that you liked about him. Right. So I really wanted to explore that.
And I think for me, it's kind of the opposite. I am invested, as we talked about, in Arya, and in John and in Ned. So whenever I see them on screen, I want to know what's going on. And what
Gotcha.
It doesn't matter really at this point anyway where they are or what the episode setting is.
Okay.
I'm just looking forward to and listening for and watching for what those characters are doing and how their stories are playing out.
So as far as like, and obviously you don't know a lot about the other characters yet, but as far as the way you're watching the show, you're more like aligned with the Starks in a way. It
Yes,
seems.
at this point, I also, and we'll get into this later, am very interested in, again, not necessarily Dothraki, is that what the
Yeah.
place is called? Not
Yeah.
necessarily that place, but um, Viserys and Daenerys and their story.
Okay.
Again, the two of them and what they are doing,
Yeah.
not necessarily because they're in that place.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Okay. So I want to talk about Sam. Because yes, like you just said, we just got introduced to Sam in this episode. And we get a tragically horrible backstory
Yeah.
on him just right off the cuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What did you? You don't need to explain the entire thing, but just like, what did you think about just, I guess, like, you see we've been introduced to a lot of people at the wall, and they're all there for various reasons, none of them being very good. So it being introduced to this new character, and not only seeing how kind of pathetic he sort of comes across
Mm-hmm.
as, but also getting this backstory about how his father also sees him that way
Mm-hmm.
too, and this ultimatum that he was given. Just like, how, what did you think about that whole thing?
So it gave me a different perspective about the wall itself.
Okay.
And it builds on the fact that these are rejects
Yeah.
who are sent here.
Yeah.
And it kind of flipped a switch in my mind for how John might also now be feeling, like thrown away basically
Yeah.
by Ned.
Yeah.
Um, because as you know, we've talked about the wall. It the higher trained soldiers aren't going there. People who know how to fight aren't going there. The people that are there are basically forgotten at
Yeah.
this point. Um, so, from how when I listened to Sam's story, it kind of connected me more to John's story. And yes, it was tragic for Sam, but for me, it was kind of like letting the audience know this is a terrible situation for John. And he now needs to understand, again, this is me talking, he needs to understand this is a futile effort. You're
Yeah.
probably going to die here and no one's going to care.
Gotcha.
And that made it more tragic. And I don't know much about Sam and where his story goes, but yeah, he is kind of this pathetic character. He's very sad and dopey, and he has some laughs later on with John. They share a moment in the mess hall. They're cleaning the tables, but at this point, he's just hopeless
Okay.
and hapless. And he tells this story for me to provide a look into John's mentality or how it
Yeah.
should be or where it's going or where it might be, because this is just a terrible place to be
Yeah.
for anybody.
That was a really good point you made about how Sam's story really shows you what the wall is,
Right.
and what its use is in that society. So did you have any, like, did you feel any certain way about just that instant connection between the two of them? Because really, after that story was told, John really softened up to Sam in a way that we really haven't seen him with anyone outside of his family, at least.
And I think the reason we haven't heard him talk that way with any of the other people that are there.
Yeah.
So, yes, now they have shared this backstory, and well, Sam has shared his backstory. John understands.
John actually did share his backstory in the mess hall.
Yeah, it's later.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
at this point, Sam hasn't gotten that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just one way. At this
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
So, and that allows John to open up. I think.
Yeah.
So yes, John, again, because he is a protector, he is a leader. He's like, oh, you're alone here.
Mm.
I can be at least one person in this world who doesn't think you're useless
Yeah.
or worthless. I'll be at least one person who isn't just going to ridicule you for who you are, what you look like, and where you come from.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that bond was natural and it was going to happen regardless.
And John Even though, I mean, well, actually, they're both highborn. Like you could tell from Sam's story that he was from a lord,
Right.
because his father said that he wasn't worthy of his land and titles and stuff like that. So I mean, really, I think that's another reason they clicked, is because John had been introduced to a lot of like, it's not that he's some like classist person, but he had been introduced to a lot of people who weren't highborn and at the wall. And so he meets Sam, who is this other highborn person who was sent there as a throwaway. So I think that was also part of the instant connection too. Is like they came from almost literally the same background, except John wasn't quite as humiliated, but he still was the reject of his family. But speaking of him being a reject and being a bastard, I wanted to talk about his refusal to have sex with the whore and the reasoning behind it. What did you think about that?
That was very interesting, and it went a different way by the end of the story. But he didn't want any more snows.
Yeah.
And that was, it's very noble, and it's very emotionally intelligent of him. I thought so anyway. Because he knows what it's like to be a bastard, to not know who you are, to not know where you come from. Because he doesn't know who his mother is.
Yeah.
Doesn't know what her name is, what her last name is, where she's from, and things like that. So he doesn't know his family's heritage, or the whole picture anyway. He has Ned, obviously, but that doesn't necessarily count. So he says even, that's no way for a child to grow up or to live. I forget what the actual quote was. But
yeah, it's not a good life, is what he said.
Yeah. So he wanted to protect this hypothetical unborn child from living the life he's had to live thus far. And it's interesting because what I thought he was going with that was, this is probably just completely ridiculous, but he kept saying he didn't know, excuse me, he didn't know if his mother was highborn. He didn't know if she was like a teacher or a whore or something like that. I thought what he was saying is, all these different women that I will meet in my life, I don't know if that's going to be my mother.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's what I thought he was going with. Like, because that probably could have rang true as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think I was almost on board with you, because I thought you were going to say something else. I thought you were going to say, I don't know if any of these women could be in the same position as my mother was. But
that's what he was saying. He didn't want to put another woman in that position.
No, that's super interesting. He's scared he's gonna have sex with his mom.
Yeah,
that is so funny. But yeah, that was one of the big things early on about John. That story he told to Sam, that really showed me what kind of person he was and made me like him.
Right.
Because I was just like, oh, okay, like you said, it was very emotionally intelligent. It was him saying, like, even though he really respects and admires his dad, he knows that he doesn't want to make the mistake that he feels his dad made, and he doesn't, and like he knows that whatever he thinks Ned thinks about that situation, he knows that Ned can't understand how he himself feels about being that kind of child,
Exactly.
So yeah, that was like really interesting for me, and it really endeared me to John, even though, to be fair, like, to be completely honest, it took me several seasons to actually like John. But that was one of the early on things that I caught. Okay, so we're gonna skip on across the narrow sea.
The river,
yes. The very large river. We're gonna go to Essos, and we're gonna talk about Daenerys and Viserys.
Okay.
So first off, I want to talk a little bit about Daenerys and Jorah. And do you know who Jorah is?
Yes.
Okay, Jorah's her older friend.
Right. The one who was exiled.
Yes. Okay, so I want to gauge your understanding of that situation after this episode.
Him being exiled?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, they kind of repeated what was said in a previous episode, and we talked about it in the last review, but Ned exiled him from Winterfell.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Seven Kingdoms.
The Seven Kingdoms. All of it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. From the Seven Kingdoms, because he sold slaves. And Ned was having none of it. And Khaleesi says that to him. You were exiled for this reason.
Yeah.
And
she kind of looks at him like,
she says,
why were you doing that? Like...
And he gives her an answer like, I was poor, first of all. And second, the woman that I was with was very expensive. Not that she was expensive, she had expensive taste.
I do want to clarify he was not poor,
Ah,
but yes, he did have an expensive wife, and that was just what he thought he was gonna do
yeah,
was be like, hey, you know what, slaves.
yeah.
That's something that I don't see enough of around here.
And it didn't work out too well for him because she left him apparently and is with someone else and living a very happy and probably luxurious life
With slaves.
with slaves.
Actually, no, but yeah. So that's interesting because I wanted to see like first of all, what does that make you think of Ned? Because he's so far as the only person we've mentioned having any sort of bias, like not bias, but any sort of problem with slavery. They haven't talked about that with any other character. And secondly, I guess we'll just start with that. Like, does that endear you to Ned? Does it matter? Is it just something expected from him?
At this point, for me, it's expected, just given how he carries himself. That it hasn't. I don't think Ned explicitly said I exiled him because he was selling slaves.
We haven't heard
Has he
Ned say
expressed
that.
that opinion at all?
We have not heard Ned say
Okay.
that in the show. No.
So to have all these other characters say that about him
Yeah.
and having him on screen with how he handles himself with other dealings and goings on, stealing a term. Um, it is expected. I'm not surprised at all he would do that. Uh, it seems as though, and we talked about this in the last one, his relationship with his people is different than Robert's and
Yeah,
his
yeah,
people.
for
So
sure.
he seems more of a humanitarian.
Mhm.
He cares about how his people live,
Yeah,
how his society runs.
yeah,
Um, in the previous episode, we talked about how he was concerned about the finances,
yeah.
and that comes up
It
in the
comes up in this
previous
episode too.
episode,
Yeah.
and it comes up in this one. So he seriously kind of jabs him about this later on, but he knows and understands how to run a kingdom,
Yeah.
and he uh, seems as though he's just a natural at it, and he wants to have his kingdom and his people act, live, and be safe, well fed, um, and prosperous.
Yeah.
And we talk about the gladiator games that are going on. And I say gladiator games because that's what
It
it
was
reminded me
jousting.
of.
Yeah.
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 But in the movie Gladiator, and this is actually historical, but they would have these kinds of um, arena events
Mhm.
that would distract people from their sorrows
Yeah.
and from what the high people were doing
Yeah.
behind their backs, so that that would keep them oppressed,
Yeah.
basically. And he didn't agree with that
Yeah.
because those are his people, and he wants them again to be prosperous and to be happy. So it doesn't surprise me at all that he would punish someone for going against those
Yeah.
morals.
And that also speaks volumes to what Cersei was trying to tell to Joffrey about how the Northerners are way differently loyal, and you can see why
Right.
as we learn more about Ned. And it's also interesting how like so I don't know if you're picking up on this yet, but like has it gotten like cool to you how like a certain character who is so far removed from another character still has this like these deep thoughts about another character that they're not really interacting with, or like this deep respect of another character that they're not interacting with, or anything like that?
Yes, I do enjoy the
Because it gives
fact.
you like character development even from like other parts of the globe,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
I do enjoy the fact that all of these different characters have this deep and intimate knowledge of someone else.
Yeah.
And even though they haven't necessarily spent a lot of time together, if you hear them talk about the other one, it's like they have been in the same place for an extended period of
Yeah.
time at some point. So they do know who each other are, of who each other are, and what they mean to their
Yeah.
prospective lands. So yes, that's very interesting to see and to hear each of them talk about someone else, either in high regard or in low
Yeah,
regard.
yeah.
But they do have that intimate knowledge of what they've been doing and how they're living their life,
Yeah.
basically.
Like that, even that little tiny jab that Jamie has about Theon, how he
Right.
says like, "I doubt that." It's like really quick, but the show like really wants to tell you like Jamie doesn't like Theon.
Yeah.
Tyrion was being a douchebag to Theon earlier,
Yeah.
so like so it's just interesting how like all these people, and I mean that's probably how like all anyone in the political spectrum in our country or any country is like, or celebrities, how they all know each other
Right.
too, probably like it's like they're all in one big social circle,
Mhm.
and it's just interesting to see how they all relate to each other,
Right.
even if they don't really know each other, which is cool. Okay, yeah, so now we're going to talk more about Daenerys and Viserys and what's going on with the two of them as a brother sister pair. How you seem to really enjoy Daenerys standing up for herself finally.
Yes. However, I want to go back to what caused that
Okay,
confrontation.
yeah.
Viserys is in a tub with just a random
Doria is her
Doria?
name, or something like that.
And they're having a conversation about dragons. And she is really trying to learn everything she can about dragons from this Viserys. And it was really weird. Why is this conversation happening? But at the same time, though, I didn't expect Viserys to have that kind of knowledge base about anything.
Oh, gotcha.
It's like, why does he just get to talk?
It was weird because, like, out of context of the several other episodes we've seen, he seemed like an okay person in that scene for a second.
Yeah, right.
It was like,
right.
oh, okay, you're kind of cool. You know stuff about the past, and like you're like giving me exposition in a not like blocky way, and it was interesting. But then it's like, wait, but you're a douchebag.
And then he turns into one very quickly. But I do want to note, and this will probably be something that the show will have to explain to me, but she asks what happened to the dragons.
Yeah.
She heard that brave men killed them.
Yeah.
And Viserys says, no, brave men rode them.
Yeah.
So, in my head, I thought, are they talking about two different people? Did brave men kill them from her point of view? And did brave men ride them from his point of view? That's just a rhetorical question that just popped up into my head. So I thought whether or not that has anything to do with anything, that was very interesting that they would say that.
Yeah. Just him making that distinction of like, no, killing dragons isn't a good thing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he talks about the skulls and how he grew up around them, and they had all died before he was born, but he was deep in his history of where they came from and how they fit into his family.
And like him saying that there are these skulls lets you know that it wasn't that long ago that there were dragons.
It's funny though, because in the throne room I looked for them and they weren't there, so I don't know what
he mentions that.
No, that they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She asks him, she's like, where are they now? And he says the usurper probably destroyed them.
You're right, I remember that now.
Yeah.
But he then also says, they're having this conversation, and she seems to be more interested in these dragons than with him, because they're in the tub having sex. So he was like, why did I buy you? What are we talking about? And she says to teach Daenerys how to be a better lover. And then he says, you thought I bought you to teach or to make Khal Drogo happy. And then he snickers like, no, you're an idiot, you have it backwards. I bought you to teach her how to make me happy. That's how I took that.
No, I think he was saying he bought her to have sex with her. It had nothing to do with Daenerys at all.
Ah, gotcha.
Like he didn't know that she was teaching Daenerys anything. Yeah, that was how I read that.
Fair enough.
Anyways. But yeah, I don't think it's. I won't say that, but don't worry about what you were thinking about, because that's not a thing.
Okay. Yeah, it was really weird. Like, why? That's odd. Okay. So then, and this is why I said this led up to that confrontation, because that's the next scene.
Yeah.
So
before we go there though, I wanted to ask you because we were just talking about Robert briefly. Is it kind of interesting just because we were just talking about like all of these characters who have this intimate knowledge of each other? Is it kind of weird to be like seeing Robert drinking and whoring and stuff, and then across the sea to have him being called the usurper and like all of these like really like intense sounding words, you know, because like, you know, like when you see him it's just like, oh, that's just the kingdom, but then when you talk to the Targaryens it's like, no, that's the usurper who like stole from them. Is that dynamic like playing out in your head at all, or
Actually,
are you not really making those
I'm not
connections?
really making those
Gotcha.
connections. And I heard him say those things, but I was more interested in the dragons.
Oh, okay,
Like,
gotcha.
why is this happening?
Okay,
What do I need to know about these dragons?
gotcha.
Because the dragon eggs appear in this episode again.
Mm.
So I'm just like, every time they talk about dragons,
Yeah.
my mind just goes
Oh,
to,
okay.
whatever.
Because you do also hear Daenerys use words like that, and that's going to be important. So that's why I
Gotcha.
wanted to say that.
So no, not yet have I made that connection. That I understand that again, there is some type of feeling between all these different peoples.
Yeah.
How somebody has wronged somebody else.
Yeah.
But it's not coming completely clear yet.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, now we're gonna get into
Yeah.
the confrontation with Viserys
So
and Daenerys.
was that girl he was dragging into the tent the same girl that was in the tub?
Yes.
Okay, it was. Okay. Because he drags her in and he's like, "Did you send her in to command me or something like that?" And Daenerys is like, "No, I just wanted you to come have dinner." And he's really upset because she's, in his eyes, playing house, and that's not why he has put her there.
Yeah.
He just wants his army,
Mm.
and he wants to go invade the kingdom and take back his throne. And she is, again, as we talked about in the last episode, is becoming queen.
Yeah.
She's pregnant with the king's baby. She is running this land now. And Viserys gets violently upset with her when she expresses this verbally. And he kind of roughs her up a bit. And he throws her to the ground. Um, and she grabs something that he has thrown at her and hits him across the face with it. And he gets up, or halfway gets up, with this terrified look on his face, just like he did in the last time he got thrown down by somebody. Like, he always just gets up like, "Oh man, what did I do wrong?"
Yeah.
Really?
No.
And she basically tells him, like, "The next time you put your hands on me, you won't have any hands."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, it's about time." I don't know what's taking so long for him to die, but
We've only seen 4 episodes.
who needs to die? He needs to die. Theon needs to die.
Theon already?
No, I'm not Theon.
Joffrey?
Joffrey needs to die. There was another person. Oh, Cersei. What's her name?
Yeah.
Cersei. Those 3 people already just need to die because they are too much. They are too much.
I don't know if Cersei is quite as bad as Joffrey and Viserys.
At that point in the previous episode, I had enough. She's calmed down a little bit, and I'm appreciating her character a little bit more. But yeah, at some point in every one of these episodes, each of these characters is just like, I just need you to go. But what Daenerys did by putting him in his place, that was good enough at this moment.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And then so we go on later and we see Jorah and Daenerys talking again, and they're talking about how Daenerys doesn't believe that she'll ever make it home if Viserys is leading the way. And so I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts about that, and any thoughts about like the mutual understanding of that between those 2 characters, basically.
So here's what I gathered.
And what do you think Jorah's playing at? Because like, he says that he wants to go home as well. So what did you think about that?
So as far as their conversation about Viserys, the only thing that I gathered, and there's probably more to it, but what I gathered is Viserys and his vision is going to get him killed, and probably get her killed. He doesn't really know how to lead an army. Mm-hmm. She even says that, actually. It's mentioned, I think Jorah says it, that the Dothraki have never crossed a body of water that their horses can't traverse. So, why is it? Well, this is rhetorical. Why is it that Viserys doesn't understand that? He
Yeah.
doesn't understand simple battle tactics.
Mm.
So, for him to try to lead this army is just not going to happen. Also, from what I understand, that conversation to be getting at is there's no way Drago is going to give him that army.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen either. He would kill him first
Mhm.
before that happened. So it just seemed like Daenerys is expressing verbally that this isn't going to work out like Viserys wants it to.
Yeah.
In any kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And for Jorah to say he also wants to go home, the only thing that kind of comes to mind, and it actually just clicked because you asked, is it seems as though he's trying to earn his way back by doing something. But he doesn't have any, or not he, but Daenerys doesn't have any ties to Ned. He's not doing Ned a favor.
Yeah.
By ushering her and guiding
He's
her.
actually going directly against Ned,
Right.
even more so.
So
That was, yeah. Because, I mean, even watching it for me just now, even knowing what he's doing, I'm just like, what are you doing?
Gotcha.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. But yeah, so, okay, yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that and talk about just that dynamic there. I wish we had saw more of Drogo this episode, but we didn't. That's unfortunate.
He was just in, like, one scene riding a horse.
Yeah, he didn't like speak or anything. Okay, well that was good though because we didn't have to deal with any no subtitles. But okay, so now back across the sea, back to Westeros.
Okay,
that's where they are. If you didn't know,
know that.
Okay, yeah, Westeros is it's actually very simple. It's Westeros is where everybody is. That's where the party is.
Okay,
and then Essos is where Daenerys is. She's the only person over there.
So Westeros and Essos.
Yeah, okay. Westeros, Narrow Sea, Essos.
Gotcha. So like west and east.
Literally, it's that easy.
Okay.
Also, like North America and everything else.
Fair enough.
Like, so, okay, so yeah, we're gonna go back to King's Landing. King's Landing is the capital.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
King's Landing is in Westeros.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Winterfell is in Westeros. King's Landing is in Westeros. The Wall is in Westeros. The only thing that's not in Westeros is Daenerys.
And where? What's that?
That's Essos. They haven't shown us any like specific cities yet.
Okay.
They just got to Vice Dothrak, which is just where the Dothraki live.
Gotcha. Okay.
But they haven't really put a lot of emphasis on the cities yet in Essos.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yes, so we're gonna start off simple, just because there wasn't much with this. But I want to talk about Sansa.
Mm-hmm.
The first time we see Sansa, she's talking to the Septa, which is like the little nun lady that's with her. And she's talking, she has these concerns about what if she only has daughters and all of this stuff. So I just want to talk a little bit about Sansa's mindset and just where she's at right now, where she's at with her father and her sister and with Joffrey.
I have forgotten or just straight misunderstood what's going on between her and Ned. Okay. Why is she upset with him?
Because he killed the wolf.
Really?
I think so.
That can't be it.
I'm pretty sure. And he just kind of feels like, I think she just kind of feels like he didn't like stand up for her enough with the Joffrey situation, because now she also feels like Joffrey hates her. I'm not completely sure what her problem is, but I think it's large. It has to do with that wolf getting killed. I just don't know exactly what her problem is.
I could be wrong, but it's her fault the wolf had to die.
No, it was Arya's fault.
No. If she had told the truth during that trial, if she had said...
And then also, she had done that, Cersei might have just, like, killed them. Like, so she doesn't know.
It's a lose-lose situation, but it's not Ned's fault.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. But, I mean, I guess when I think about it, like, Ned and Cersei both kind of seem to be in agreement on the fact that Sansa did the smartest thing she could in that situation.
I completely understand.
Yeah.
That. But I'm if she's upset with Ned because of the wolf, there are a lot of circumstances that led to the wolf needing to die that she was directly involved in.
It is odd that she is upset with Ned and not with Arya, at the very least. But I'm not... really sure, but yeah, I also think it's less about Ned and more about her being afraid of what's going on with Joffrey. I think that's what it really boils down to.
Fair enough.
And Ned just might be bearing the brunt of it because she's the person she knows.
Yeah.
She's the person she can be angry with. She can't really be angry with Joffrey, especially where she is right now. So
So as far as that feeling, she is also afraid of letting down all of her people because she, as a queen, needs to bear princes who will take up the throne after Joffrey. And she knows of at least one circumstance where a woman has 5 children and they're all girls.
mm,
And she's afraid that if that happens to her and Joffrey, that she'll be ostracized and everyone will hate her for it. And what's her name?
the Septa.
The Septa.
Yeah.
Does she have a name, or is she just
Septa Unella is her name, but no, sorry, people on the internet, that is not her name. I think her name is Septa Mordain, but it doesn't really matter.
Okay. So, she says that Joffrey's brother will take up the throne.
Yeah.
If that's the case.
So yes, Joffrey has a brother. Now you know that.
I know that now. So yeah, she is understanding what her role is going to be once she does marry Joffrey.
Okay. Yeah. I think Sansa is just she's transitioning. She's never really been out of Winterfell, much less the capital, where we've already seen all of this like deceitful stuff that we'll get into later with the spies and all of that stuff. So she's in a place where that she doesn't understand with this person that she knows she is going to need to spend the rest of her life with, and she's just freaking out about a lot of stuff right now. Also, Cersei is concerned about how much she's bleeding, so like
Right.
she just got some things to worry about right now. Okay, so now I want to talk about Arya and Ned and the side of their conversation that was about her. They talk about Bran a little bit, and they talk about how Bran might raise castles, he might be a lord, he might do. There's still things he can do despite being a cripple. And then she wants to know, where does that leave her? Like,
Right.
what is she gonna do with her life? And he tells her that she's gonna be a lady and she's gonna have kids like Sansa, and like her kids are gonna be princes maybe, and all this stuff. And she says, "That's not me." So you love Arya. So like, was that just another selling point?
Just
for
another
you?
selling point. It builds on what we know about her already, what we've seen from her already. What I liked more from that scene is Ned's reaction to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he goes into great detail about what her path should be, and she says no, and he kind of looks at her like, "Yeah, I should have known that."
Yeah.
And he gives a smirk, and then he gets up and walks away. You know, it's so easy for a father figure in that particular position in this kind of time where they live in universe to just completely shut that down.
Yeah.
Like, and try to squash any independence that Arya might have.
Yeah.
Any vision for her own future that she might have. This is the line you have to walk because you're a woman.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do. And to see him, at least in this moment, kind of accept that answer from her. Like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
He's already seeing her sword fighting.
Yeah.
And training on the stairs, like what she's doing literally right now.
Yeah.
Going against the grain already.
Gotcha.
So, from what I saw in that particular scene, it was like half a second.
Yeah.
It's him seeing this evolution of her.
Okay.
It's just a continued evolution of who she really wants to be, who she really is.
So that scene really endeared you to both of them. Then that's good. Okay, so continuing on with some more stuff that's going on with Ned, we see him investigating Jon Arryn's death. So what do you think about that?
I really liked it. I really liked it because it seems as though no one is concerned. It seems as though no one wants him asking all these questions.
Yeah.
It seems as though all the information surrounding this death. What's his name again?
John Aaron.
John Aaron.
Yeah. Who was his wife's sister's husband. So Catelyn's sister's husband.
Catelyn's sister's husband.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, everyone around, they are even watching him, trying to figure out who he's talking to, what questions he's asking. And it's odd, and we'll find out. It's odd that no one seems to be upset.
Yeah.
And no one wants to know, because everyone's under the impression that he was just old and he died.
Yeah.
So it's really weird to have somebody come
Yeah,
around.
like if
this
someone
wasn't a
just
murder.
like if the impression that everyone has is someone just died of old age and you're sitting around here like trying to figure out what he was drinking that night, you look weird. Yeah. No, I feel you on that. But I did want to point out that Cersei walks in and is also kind of like, "Hey, bro, let's just be real. What are you doing? Why are you here?" So, what did you think about that?
That was a very interesting scene. It was a chess match.
Yeah,
That's what I saw. Because she says, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
And he says to her, "What are you doing here?" Like, if we're both gonna be in the wrong spot, we're both in the wrong spot. Let's be open about what we're both doing here. You know what I'm doing here. Somebody murdered my buddy.
Yeah.
So he and she go back and forth about who or what their roles are in regard to John Aaron's death.
Yeah.
What's his name? John Aaron?
John Aaron.
John Aaron's death. And Cersei, says, "Hey, why are you doing this? What exactly are you here to do?" And Ned kind of evades the question, and he says, "I'm here to serve John Aaron." Or no, the king. Sorry. The king asked me to come down here and watch over or do something.
Run the kingdom.
Run the kingdom. Yeah. And until he tells me that I can go back home, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
What he's really doing is trying to figure out what happened to John Aaron.
Yeah.
So Cersei then says to him, "Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Your brother was trained to be a leader. You were trained to be a follower. So if Robert asked you to do something, you're just going to do it.
Yeah.
And not ask any questions." And Robert says, "Yeah, that's..." No, not Robert. Ned. He says, "Yeah, that's true. But I was also trained to kill my enemy." And I was like, oh, he got her. He got her. But wait. She says, "So have I." Boom. And then walks out, like mic drops. It just walks out. I'm like, okay. I see you, Cersei. I see you.
What I will say is, like, as much as I can't even really say I hate Cersei, but as much as Cersei is Cersei, she has some really wonderful moments, and that was one of them, for sure. Because, like you said, it looked like our hero, Ned, it looked like the good guy. It's just like, "Hey, girl, hey, evil person, can you just chill out?"
Right.
And she's like, "Hey, not evil person, you're in my house." Right. And that's literally what happens.
They're like, both have their sword against each other's neck, like, make the wrong move.
Right?
Okay, we're just gonna back up.
And, like, even though the swords weren't out, like, the swords that could be out were very visible. Yeah. Like, both of them were like, "Is this conversation going to end with me, like, having a murder plot against you? Because that's fine. I just want to know."
We could throw hands. They were about to. So, yeah, I did really like that scene, and I did really like... It's Cersei. And I said this the last episode. The emotional roller coaster that these characters are taking me on. Cersei, she's just a great villain to this point. And when she isn't at 100 with her craziness...
Like with the wolf?
Yeah, like, calm down with that. Be more like this. Be more intelligent. Be more verbal. Be more articulate with your scheming. And just be subtle about it. She's just a really great character. Or is becoming a really great character in my eyes, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying the cat and mouse between her and basically any of their adversaries. she's out for everybody. We talked about that.
And the interesting thing about that is she literally was only in this episode for like 2 or 3 minutes, and you still got that much out of her performance, which says something, I think. Okay, so now that we're talking about Ned and his investigating and how unwelcome it is, like, it's interesting because we see him go to this blacksmith place, and he finds a boy. Do you know who that boy is? Do you remember?
Robert's bastard son.
Yes. So, what do you think about that? That was kind of like a curveball, right?
It was a super curveball. And I was like, what? Why show? I'm having enough trouble keeping up with the 12 plot lines you've got going on. Don't need 13. So, and what was also interesting about that scene is he tells, at the end of the conversation, he tells him to look at him. Look him in the eyes.
Yeah.
And then he recognizes whoever his mother might be. Or his father might be.
Yeah.
He definitely recognizes that it's Robert.
Yeah.
And that could just be it. Because it's John Aaron who wanted to talk to him before he died, right?
Yeah.
And John Aaron was asking the boy about his mother. What she looked like, who she was, and things like that. And then that's when Ned says, hey, look at me. And then he recognizes that it's probably Robert, or he recognizes both of the parents. But he definitely recognizes Robert. So, yeah, apparently Robert has this bastard son. And Ned also says to it's not a locksmith, he's an armorer. That's what that other guy calls him.
Yeah.
What's his name?
The guy who's with Ned, who's been hanging out. I don't actually know his name.
No. The guy with the facial hair that I don't like.
There's a guy.
The brothel.
Oh, Littlefinger.
Littlefinger.
Yeah.
That's his name?
Yeah.
That's the only one.
He explains it.
No, I know that. But
his name is Peter.
Peter, okay.
Yeah.
What was I saying?
You were talking about how Ned recognized his parents. How he recognized...
Why did I say Peter? Why was I thinking?
I don't know where you were going with that.
Okay. So he recognizes that it's Robert's bastard son. So I don't know why, what's going on there. I don't know. I just.
Yeah, I just was wondering if that was like a little bit like extra for you, because like you already like have Ned in this strange place asking questions he doesn't need to be asking, and then he stumbles upon a person he definitely doesn't need to stumble upon at this moment in time. So I just thought that was really interesting. I forgot that Gendry that's the boy's name. I forgot that he was introduced this early, so I was just like, oh, we're doing this already. All right, episode 4.
Let's do it.
But yeah, so that's interesting. Did you have any particular thoughts about the character? He didn't say much, but like he had a strong personality, like for someone who was being addressed by someone so high up when he was so low. Like it was just like,
yeah, and even Ned picked up on that a little bit, and he probably just picked up on his mastery of his craft. But as he was leaving, he said, oh, that's why Peter calls the armorer an armorer.
Yeah,
that's why.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I was thinking about that. But Ned says to him, the day this boy stops forging a sword and carries one, let me know, or send him to me.
Yeah.
So he already understands that he also is going to be a strong fighter. And with his knowledge of the weaponry that he's building, he's probably going to be of good use on the battlefield.
Okay, cool. So you said that he could be of good use on the battlefield. So what do you... Ned makes this comment of like showing clear interest in the boy, but like, what do you think Ned's angle with that would be? Like, what
I
would?
have no idea.
Oh, okay,
Other
gotcha.
than putting him on the field.
So like introducing him to Robert, like anything.
I think if he wanted to do that, he wouldn't have to wait for him to, because that never happens.
Yeah.
So.
So you think this is something he like even is trying to tell Robert about, or does you think Robert would even care?
I don't know,
Okay.
because to me, I don't know. At this point, I can't even.
You can't even fathom a direction for that.
I can't fathom that Robert doesn't know. I mean,
Gotcha.
I don't know that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that he does know. And I don't know that Robert doesn't know that Ned knows.
Gotcha.
I don't know that Ned doesn't know Robert
I see.
doesn't
I see.
know.
I
Like,
see. I see.
I don't know
Okay.
who
Gotcha.
knows what.
I see. I see. While we're talking about Robert, and then we're gonna move on out of Winter or out of King's Landing, but I want to talk about Jamie really, really quick because there's this really telling scene that kind of shows the position Jamie is in, and he's talking about how Robert makes him stand outside of his door while he cheats on Cersei. Did you think anything of that at all? Did that matter to you?
So I honestly thought that was Tyrion in there
Oh,
because
okay.
all the ladies that were coming out.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But I did hear him say that. So, but I didn't hear what he said. I heard him say my sister.
Yeah. He says, he says something to the effect of, sometimes he likes to make me stand out here while he disrespects my sister, or
Gotcha.
something like that.
So I caught all of that except the disrespect part.
Gotcha, okay.
So, it it's interesting because he is upset by the disrespect in a way that we see him wallow in it.
Yeah.
Cersei completely understands the disrespect is happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, whatever.
Yeah, literally, this is the last thing she cares
Yeah.
about.
So it's, I guess it's in line with the conversation from the previous episode, where he has these deeper emotional feelings for Cersei being his sister and
Yeah.
lover. So yeah, he's definitely not on board with having to be outside while the woman he loves feelings are getting hurt.
Yeah.
And I've got that in air quotes, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's odd that he looks so vulnerable, but I get it. I don't think I like it. I want him to just be a snake. And
Oh, you don't want to see a good side of Jamie necessarily?
yeah, like, don't do that. Just
Well, why is that, though?
because I don't care about your feelings.
Okay.
You tried to throw a child out of a castle. No, you didn't try. You did.
I see.
Like, be that person.
It's so funny
the
because,
entire
like,
series.
I'm having to teleport myself back to season 1.
Mhm.
Because in my head I was like, come on, why are you giving Jamie such a hard time? But I keep forgetting that you only know certain things. Yeah. And so yes, looking at Jamie, you're right. He needs to just calm down. Like, he needs to just shut up.
Yeah.
Because no, that's so funny. That's so funny.
I'm done with you crying about
your sister getting cheated on, even though she also cheats with you, her brother.
Her brother. Really? So many things wrong.
That's really why I wanted to point out that scene, because it just showed like this day and age, like, incest is not cool. Right. And so, well, in our heads, it's already, when we first see them together, we're like, what are you guys thinking? But as you see them speak more, you really get the impression of, like, what literally is going through your head? Yeah. Like, why? How does your brain work like
exactly.
that? Like,
it's very odd. It's very odd. So just keep throwing kids out of castles. That's all I want to see from you. Stop crying.
That is so funny. I'm so looking forward to your thoughts on Jamie moving forward. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and end in the inn with Catelyn and Tyrion. And we're going to talk about that scene, because that's one of my favorite scenes from this whole season, actually. I really enjoyed that scene a lot. And I wanted to just kind of get your initial impression on what happened and how it played out.
All right. Catelyn is speaking with...
I think that was Sir Roderick. I don't remember.
Okay. About... Were they just talking?
They were just talking.
Okay.
I don't know if it was super important.
Well, she has a hood over her head, and no one in the scene knows that she is who she is.
Yeah.
Tyrion, who is just roaming around, finds this inn coincidentally.
Yeah.
And he walks in, and he just wants to be served. He wants a room, he wants some food, and he wants some whores, because that's what he does. So he's walking through the inn. He makes a joke, and it's really funny because one of the barkeepers says something to him about accommodations not being available, and he says, "Don't worry about the accommodations. I won't need a very large room." And I thought that was really funny because he's a little person.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if that has anything to do with anything except me loving that he just is living his life.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
He is quite literally living his best life.
He's definitely aware that he's adored.
Yeah.
I love it. So
no, just aware he's accepted it.
Yeah.
It's fine with him. Yeah.
He walks through the inn towards the middle of it, and he recognizes Catelyn. And he also recognizes that she's hiding. So he just says, "Hey, Catelyn, what's up?" And she's like, really, bro? So she takes down her hood, she stands up, and everyone starts bowing to her and greeting her and things like that. And Tyrion asks her, like, what are you doing here?
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to be somewhere else. You're literally supposed to be somewhere else.
Literally
right
anywhere but in this inn right now. Yeah.
And she's like, don't worry about it. Mind your own business. But she stands up because she's actually glad that he's there. And she walks around the room introducing herself to some of the individuals that are in there and connecting with them. Like, hey, I know you from your family does. We helped you with.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Which I found remarkable that she not only recognized all those faces, but recognized like who they were, where they were from, what their history was. Like it was just it once again spoke to how well the Northerners know their people. And
then she says, I need a favor from all of you guys. We've got to know each other a little bit. Let's have a discussion. This guy, Tyrion, he tried to murder my son while he was asleep. Could you guys arrest him, please? And everybody draws their sword on this little person. And they point them down at his head. And the scene, it goes off after that. So, it's unfortunate. And I don't know what's happening. But, one, I don't want it to be that Tyrion had anything to do with Bran's death or assassination attempt. And it's unfortunate if, in fact, he doesn't and Catelyn has just jumped the gun and alerted whoever did try to do that they're onto him. Okay. And
so you're saying that could be a bad move for the Starks, potentially, and for Tyrion.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a whole lot of cobwebs. There's a whole can of worms that she's just opened here that could just go bad for a lot of different people. And even those who have taken up arms against this Lannister. Because now retaliation from Jaime could come. And it's just a whole lot of craziness that could go on.
Yeah.
So, it definitely opens up an avenue to explore, like, several seasons of stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's some... She stepped in it.
Yeah. It's interesting because... So, what you were just saying about how Jaime could retaliate, or one of many things that could happen, Cersei probably wouldn't care that much. But, other than the fact that, like, it's a move against her family, not necessarily about Tyrion himself. But it's interesting that it kind of shows how the Starks gave a lot of time to consider what happened and to try to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And it'll be interesting to see if the Starks receive that same treatment from the Lannisters when they find out about this.
Right.
Yeah. So that is something that will be really interesting to see play out. And also, like, Ned's gonna have to react to this of like, oh, hey, wife, you're just, like, arresting people.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you could do that.
Right.
Not necessarily that she needs his permission, but, like, it goes back to that look that he gave to Arya about how he realizes the position he's putting his family in right now. And so once he hears about this, he's obviously going to have to feel some sort of way.
Let me know you're going to do that. Like,
well, to be fair, she didn't know she was going to run into him.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Like, that was just a complete snap decision that she made.
But at the same time, she does has she been keeping from him that she suspects the Lannisters?
Did she tell him when
I
they were
don't
in the
think
street
so.
that day?
No, I don't
She
think
didn't.
so.
Okay,
I
then
don't
she
think
might
so.
not have told him then.
Because they had that secret
She
meeting.
might not. I don't think she could have told him there. She might have
Right.
thought someone would have heard her or something. But yeah, you're right. I don't think she's told him that.
So, and she probably doesn't want to burden him with
Yeah,
that
yeah,
because
for
she
sure.
probably understands it's a long shot, but she had to take her shot since he was there in that inn.
Because I mean, to be fair, like it's his dagger.
Yeah.
Like, so it wasn't like a crazy conclusion that she jumped to, and like they've lived in that castle peacefully for however long, and their son gets murdered twice, coincidentally after they invite a certain family
Right.
to live with them for a bit. So I mean, she's right to think that it's them, regardless of who it is.
Right.
Like it makes sense. It's the only thing
It's
that
the
really
logical
makes sense.
conclusion based on
Exactly.
the information they have.
And to let him walk out of that inn, I don't know if that, in her mind, that could have been just as potentially dangerous as like arresting him.
Right.
But it did there was a lot in this episode that really showed the deep respect people have for the Starks.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like people will come to the Starks' aid at just literally on a whim if they take off their hoodie,
Right.
you know. So that was something that was really cool. That was something that I really liked about that ending, and really endeared me to Catelyn, because it's easy to look at Catelyn and look at her, the way she treats Jon Snow or whatever, and think whatever you want to think about her, but like it just really, this season is really showing you a lot about like why, not only the fact that the Starks have the power that they have, but why they have
Right.
it. And then we also see like a lot of why Robert has his power, and it doesn't seem like it's really the same reason, you know. And so like that's just something that's really interesting to explore, because Robert has quite a bit more power than them, but still we don't really get the impression that he's earned that in the way that the Starks have.
I think what the show is doing for me anyway is it's stacking pebbles of Robert's credibility.
Gotcha.
Giving us little nuggets of backstory about him and what he's done, and what he's been through, and the part of history that he's played in. And it's just a little at a time, but at the same time, the majority of it is him partying. And I'm not necessarily upset with that, because I enjoy him just drinking and having fun, and hanging out with Ned. He didn't hang out with Ned in this episode, but that's what he does.
Yeah, I think one of the key differences is as far as like how we view them, especially early on. Like the Starks look like a family. The Starks are a family.
Absolutely.
Robert and his family is just some nightmare of like weird relationships. So I think it's easier to see them all as these like well-respected individuals because they work so well as a unit, whereas Robert is really just like kind of one guy who has a bunch of people around him. But yeah, okay. So anything that we didn't talk about that you were interested in? I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah. Again, as we've said many times throughout this particular review, this episode was packed with a lot of information, more information than any of the other previous episodes.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of places where I did get lost, but for the most part, if I heard you correctly, I've understood enough about it that the show can fill in the gaps later on.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about it, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of history that, again, these characters already have with one another that they are just displaying, because that's what people do. They just talk.
Yeah.
It
is kind of funny when you catch them sliding their exposition into certain scenes, like when John is talking to Sam, he's like, "Why is my last name Snow?"
Yeah.
And it's like, "Hey, audience,
Right.
here's why my last name
Right.
is Snow." But it's nice, it's respectable the way that they do it, because it does just sound like organic conversation.
Yeah. But other than that, again, it's a good show, and I'm enjoying it.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was episode 4, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you guys next week for episode 5.